Welcome to the Rank and Report football show from Richmond, Virginia to London, England. I am your host, as I always am, Adam Booker, and I'm joined, as I always am, by Mr. Charlie Gordon. How you doing, Charlie?
Yeah, I'm not bad. I'm excited. We've got a topic that I'm very excited to dive into today. So yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into that, I just want to mention, since we are a new channel, hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so that when we drop a new video, you'll get notified. We are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts where you can get our full episodes where we give all of our rankings and all that juicy stuff. Videos like this where we're just talking about one specific club are going to be YouTube only, but if you are new to the channel and haven't seen the first episode of our rankings, you can click on the icon in the top right corner of your video right now, or go search on Spotify or Apple for the Rank and Report football show. So now that we got that out of the way, we're gonna talk about a club that's in great form at the moment. Maybe the hottest team in Europe, and that's RB Leipzig. So Charlie, I'll let you kick us off. So obviously Leipzig are a part of the Red Bull football group, so it's kind of a weird entity, a kind of a weird club to tackle because there's this whole system of players coming through from Salzburg and New York and all that. But what so far this season, and maybe even some of last season, what is it about Leipzig that has them on such a great streak at the moment?
Yeah, I think you have to take last season into account as well, being that this season's so young and they got so far in the Champions League. I think they got to the semi-final, didn't they? Is that right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're right. It's a strange club to talk about because they're so up and coming. I think they've only existed in the last 10 or 20 years. I don't know exactly what the figure is. But they just seem like an extremely well-run club at the moment. That's the sense I get. They got a very clear buying strategy, which I'm actually a big fan of. They take players who aren't household names and kind of turn them into household names, if you like, or not even household names, but players who are well respected by those who follow football. By, let's say, like Upamecano was not extremely well known a couple of years ago, but they saw he had potential, and now he's a great player now. It's the same with their keeper Gulashi. Like, where did this guy come from? Do you know what I mean? I'd never heard of this guy. All of a sudden, he's one of the best keepers in the Bundesliga. So I think that's at the core of what they're trying to do. And it's just a philosophy that's working really, really well for him at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a philosophy that goes kind of all the way through the Red Bull system. If you look at their, I don't know what you want to call it, sister club, brother club, whatever, in RB Salzburg, and you look at some of the players that have come through, and obviously the biggest one would be Erling Braut Haaland, who, was essentially a nobody and comes to Salzburg, rips it up in the Champions League on the biggest stage, and just like that, he gets a big money move to Dortmund, and now, in the next couple of years, he's probably going to leave Dortmund for triple, quadruple what he went there for. So, and some of that money is going to come back to the Red Bull system, and it's a selling system, but at the same time, it's kind of like Dortmund in a way. At the same time, while selling and moving on young kids, they're still being very competitive. And, if you look at Leipzig's last couple seasons, they've consistently been in that top four. And, I think that's really impressive. And one of the most impressive things about this whole team for me is got to be Julian Nagelsmann. I think he's what, 34 years old, 35 years old, and
33,
most of
33, I think.
Even younger. There's probably hundreds and hundreds of players in Europe's big leagues right now that are older than him, which is just unbelievable. But the guy is kind of a tactical genius, and at that age, there's kind of an unlimited ceiling for him. So is there anything specifically that impresses you about him? Because every time I watch them play, it just seems like they have something new to bring out.
Yeah, I think backtracking just slightly, I think, when they're a buying club, as you've said, that's kind of their philosophy. there has to be at the core of that a very good manager, because if there's players leaving and coming in all the time, you've got to be prepared for anything. You've got to be prepared to start the new season with a totally different set of players than the one you finished the last season with. And luckily, they've got that with Nagelsmann. I think they were probably able to get him because of his age. He was only 31, 32 when he came in, even though he'd had 3 good years with Hoffenheim. But I think that's the reason he's got the job. And I think now at 33 years of age, his stock is very, very high. You know, when he moves on from RB Leipzig, I think it's going to be to one of the top clubs in Europe. But in terms of what I've seen from him, I think it also stems back to that thing where you've got to be a good manager to deal with these outgoings and incomings of new players. Because I've noticed that the last few games for Leipzig, they're constantly putting out different players, different formations. They're playing people in different positions. Like, it's a totally experimental setup from Nagelsmann, which that takes some serious skill to pull off. It's not, you can't just put names down on a team sheet and hope for the best. Like, he's obviously got a plan A, plan B, plan C. And the football that we've seen from it has consistently been really, really exciting. So I'm just really impressed by that mostly.
Yeah, well, you talk about the variety of formations and starting 11s that he's had. I did some digging into their games this season, and they've actually started every single game this season with a different formation. So, or a variation of one of their normal formations. But they've played now 5 games this season, and just to name a few formations that they've started with, they've started in a 3-4-3, a 4-1-4-1, a 4-2-3-1, where at times you had Emil Forsberg playing as a false 9,
Yeah.
as well as a 3-4-2-1. So it seems to me like Nagelsmann is the kind of guy that doesn't necessarily have a specific system that he wants to play week in, week out, but he is one of those managers that will play a formation based on the opponent. And to me, with the results that they're getting, it just means that basically every time they take the field, he's outthinking the opposition manager.
Yeah, and I think that's quite a new age trait of a manager as well, to tailor the game to the opponent you're playing. I think the old school philosophy has been, we're the team, we play our football, and we believe in that philosophy. We're just better than them, right? But the thing with that is, I'm quite a firm believer. I think it's logical, to be honest. I'm not the only one that believes it, but eventually, if you play the same way, you're going to get figured out. You know, someone is going to come up with a style of football which can counter, the effective style of football. We've seen it with Guardiola actually recently. Obviously, the first 2 seasons he was absolutely rampant for Manchester City, and then people have started figuring us out. It seems like, so now you actually see Guardiola being really experimental with his lineups because he's trying to tailor the game to the opposition. So, and who Guardiola is one of the main groundbreaking managers in the game. So if it's just him and Nagelsmann as the key 2 managers that are doing that kind of tactics, then they're both in good company.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so moving on from Nagelsmann, I think a big talking point for this season is the fact that over the summer they lost nearly half of their goals in Timo Werner and Patrick Schick going out the door. And to me, it seems like they haven't really skipped a beat. If you watch this team play, goals kind of come from everywhere. So far, like I said, they've played 5 games. 7 different players have scored in those 5 games. So, the goals are being spread around, and it's not just the onus is not just on 1 or 2 forwards to do the goal scoring, which is a great thing. There's guys like Yusuf Poulsen, Emma Forsberg, some of the grassroots guys that help this club kind of climb through the ranks of German football to get to where they are now chipping in with a ton of goals. But I think that's really a great feather in the cap of Julian Nagelsmann, that with such a big amount of their goals leaving in Schick and Werner, and they really just haven't skipped a beat at all.
Yeah, I think it's borderline insanity that a player like Werner would leave, who scored so many goals last season, and you wouldn't get a direct replacement for him. Well, they've brought in Sorloth actually, who is scored a lot of goals in Turkey, but he's not even been starting since he came in. So they've
Mhm.
not got a direct replacement for Timo Werner. And like you say, somehow, some way, they've not skipped a beat. I don't know. It's kind of like witchcraft. Even Angelino, the left back on loan from Manchester City, is their top scorer in all competitions this season. He's got 4 goals already. He got 2 against Istanbul Basaksehir, well pronounced, in the Champions League this weekend. And all of a sudden, he's playing in a really advanced position. And like you say, Forsberg, I knew him as an attacking midfielder. He's now playing as a false nine. You got all sorts of things going on. And like we said before, Nagelsmann is just being extremely creative in terms of how his team are getting goals.
Yeah, and that's not even to mention that Marcel Sabitzer hasn't started a game yet this season, and he's such a force of creativity and goals in that team. Um, but moving back from the forward position, if you look at midfield, where that creativity comes from, I think with Werner now at the door, um, the onus is really on Danny Almo, who they bought in from Dinamo Zagreb for about 20 million pounds,
Yeah.
um, and this is a guy that came up through Barcelona's La Masia Academy, and um, they brought him in to really be that creative force in midfield. It hasn't really shown that much since they brought him in. We saw some flashes of it late in the season last year, but so far this season, he's looked really good. Him and Nkunku in midfield are really everything runs through them. And if they can keep up this attacking force that they have with the defensive force that they have, like you said, Upamecano, who leads that. I think the ceiling is just so high for this team.
Yeah, especially I think Danny Olmo is the one I would single out as one to watch out of this team. I mean, I rate Upamecano extremely highly, and I think he's going to be at an extremely high level. But Danny Olmo, as a player that's very recently come into the side, like you say, from Dynamo Zagreb, which is pretty much the wilderness in footballing terms, but while he was out there in Zagreb, people still knew about him because of his Barcelona heritage, and people knew that he was a very good player going to a kind of small team, if you like, so that he could shine and catch the eye of those around Europe. And to be honest, what I've seen from him so far, I've been very impressed. Like Leipzig's attacking style is like one touch, quick movement, kind of devastating moves at a very fast pace. And Olmo is such a tidy player with such good technical ability that he kind of fits into that perfectly. And I think Nagelsmann uh, will almost be building the attack around Olmo because we've seen him play centre attacking mid and on the wing, so he can be deployed in a whole range of positions. And I think he's definitely one of the main guys to look out for Leipzig this season.
Absolutely. All right. So, in your opinion, what do you think is the ceiling for this team? Obviously, they're sitting in first right now, but we're kind of used to this in German football where Bayern may start a little bit slow and leave teams like Leipzig, Dortmund, Leverkusen in the race for, maybe 75% of the season. And then all of a sudden they win 15 straight and blow everybody out of the water and win the title like it's nothing. So what do you think is the ceiling? Obviously, they had a deep run in the Champions League last year. Can they match that? Can they better that? What do you think about this team? What's their ceiling?
It's difficult to say. Like it's hard to see their ceiling improving on last year. Uh, Last year they got to the semi-final of the Champions League, and they did well in the Bundesliga. I think. Well, did they come third in the Bundesliga? Second, third.
Um, we should
Anyway,
know
they
this,
were they were they
doing
were
a
towards the top. They
doing
were
a video
toward,
on RB Leipzig, but
they were very much towards the. Oh, they were third. They were third. So they were towards the top of the Bundesliga last season. But I think as well as they're playing now, eventually over the course of a 50, 60 game season, the lack of goals from a single player to really put the team on his back, you're gonna suffer from that eventually. if you look at their top scorers, you've got Angelino, who's a left back that's currently playing left wing, and then behind them you've got Poulsen, who I've not been hugely impressed with. He's not a striker that gets tons of goals. He definitely serves his purpose up there. And then you've got Forsberg behind him. They've both got 2 goals, which isn't really that impressive. And I think over the course of a season, you're going to struggle. They're in good form at the moment, but let's say 4 or 5 months down the line when they're not in good form, they haven't got the goal machine that can pull them out of those hard places. So I'd be very, very impressed if they even matched what they did last year.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen so far it's a bit of a freak season all around Europe. I think that's going to go in their favor that some of these, not that they're a smaller team, but some of these teams with lower budgets and maybe a little bit less squad depth can make runs. But on the goals, I think they're going to eventually start to play Sorloth a little bit more and see if he can be the guy that they signed him to be, which was kind of a Timo Werner replacement. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that eventually the sale of Werner and lack of direct replacement will eventually come back to bite them. But, off to a terrific start so far. And I fully expect them to be in a title race for most of the season, but I do expect Bayern to kind of just eke it out like they normally do. But so
Yeah,
far, so good. And I'm very curious to see where this team goes from here.
yeah.
Um,
No, I just want
Go
to.
ahead.
Sorry, I just want to back up my previous statement by I said if I said, if the team stays as it is at the moment without the goal machine up front, then their ceiling is pretty much what they did last season. But if they get a goal machine in, or if Sorloth is that goal machine, to be fair, if he scores at the rate that he did in Turkey, he got a lot of goals. And I remember him at Crystal Palace. Actually, he didn't play many games, but I did happen to watch one of the games that he played in. And he's a vet. I think he's about 6'2" to 6'4". He's a tall guy, and he's kind of quick. He seemed like a bit of a raw talent at that point. His finishing wasn't very refined. He had a really good chance and he missed. But obviously, since he's gone to Turkey, he's obviously refined his game a lot. He must be full of confidence now. So maybe he can be that goal machine. And if he is, then I think the ceiling for Leipzig is sky high because everyone's impressed with Nagelsmann at the moment. And the style of football they're playing is so, so good to watch that I think, they can win the Bundesliga and have a deep run in the Champions League if they get that goal scorer in.
Absolutely. I just want to give a quick shout out to America's very own Tyler Adams, who tends to run that midfield from time to time and will run the midfield of the U.S. national team. If anyone has watched our previous videos, I won't shy away from shouting out our American players because we have so few world-class American players.
Mate,
but
there's so many American players in the Bundesliga right now. It's crazy. Because I know Alphonso Davis isn't one of them. He's Canadian, but he's in that North American bracket. And then you've got who else have you got? Haven't Bayern got a couple? Chris Richards, is that right?
yeah, Bayern's got Chris Richards. What most people think is our future striker, Josh Sargent, is at Werder Bremen.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was that set that whole craze off of young American talent going to Germany. Probably because they tend to give youth a bit more of a chance there. But yeah, they're all around.
It's the same with Brits. We got Jadon Sancho was the first to go over there, and now you've got Jude Bellingham at the same club. You've had a lot of Brits go to the Bundesliga all of a sudden. It's kind of like a tidal wave going on, but yeah, it's good to see.
Absolutely. All right, I think that's just gonna wrap up our talk on RB Leipzig. Like we said, off to a great start for them so far, and curious to see where it goes from here. Charlie, got any last words for the people?
Nothing too inspiring, but I will see you all again for our next video, which will be the full 1 to 10 podcast, I believe, where we'll be coming at you with some fresh insights and some new teams to talk about.
Absolutely. All right, we will see you guys in a few days. See you.